Okay, well, let's get started. So let me kind of some of my notes here. So let me just move this over a little bit. Okay. So first of all, hello to everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Seth Berman, President and CEO of Instantiations. It's great to be here today, even if it's only virtually for the time being. But hopefully we can resume in-person conferences after this pandemic subsides globally. First of all, I really appreciate the invitation and opportunity to speak about what Instantiations has been up to since the last in-person FAST conference in Argentina. You know, we've had a lot going on, and we'd love to share it with the community. So with that, I want to welcome you to this event named Constant Refinement and Continuing Progress at Instantiations. To explain what this means, you know, Instantiations has been constantly refining and improving what it is we do. And what you're now seeing is the progress resulting from those efforts, like new technologies, new services, new branding and website, and of course, a vast platform that is getting more and more advanced with every release. So as you've probably read in the event description, we'll be speaking about a few topics today, and I'll be starting off with kind of a more business direction and strategy focused mini session. So with that, let's get started with advancement and expansion with Smalltalk as a foundation. So today our agenda for this mini session includes, first, what does it mean to be a commercial software provider? And what does it mean for Instantiations to be one specifically? So what makes providers like us necessary? And next, we'll do kind of a short dive into Instantiations past. I'll briefly talk about the evolution of Instantiations and the changes that have been made, you know, and basically have made it what it is today. Then we'll discuss some upcoming technical advancements we're making with VAST and with other technologies, and how we're expanding our services offerings. And finally, we'll end with a kind of a short question and answer session, and I'll be happy to answer some questions that you might have. So let's get started. So what does it mean to be a commercial software provider? Well, we got to where we are today with solid software development skills from a great engineering team. And yeah, perhaps some luck along the way too, but you know, it also comes down to focusing on what a commercial software provider should do for their customers. So in short, reliability of their software and support services are required. So you simply can't be a successful commercial software provider without both of those. So ultimately, we exist because there are businesses, many times at the enterprise level, that demand these capabilities and won't settle for less. And let's not forget, they want their software to be supported for many years. And as a matter of fact, I mean, even today, we support versions of VAST released over 15 years ago. And of course, this comes at a cost, but it's one that's easy to justify considering kind of the overall value of so many of these systems running the VAST platform today. So the first thing that businesses require from commercial software providers is great software. And to be clear, you know, there's definitely great open source software out there too. As a matter of fact, we use it ourselves. But, you know, it's extremely difficult to consistently produce, maintain, and support good software year after year without a dedicated full-time team that's accountable to paying customers. So, I mean, even popular open source projects from companies like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon tend to have a core group of dedicated and paid staff and resources to keep them going at quality. So when you don't have good funding and commercial backing, you can have extreme situations like what we saw with, you guys remember Heartbleed and OpenSSL? I mean, that taught the industry a huge lesson in what it is to have an understaffed and underfunded project that plays such a critical role in our technology stacks. So once you have a dedicated staff that's paid to solve issues and is focused on customer needs, these points here that are listed kind of tend to fall into place. Software stability is number one because it affects our bottom line. Unstable software translates to higher support costs for us, not just the cost to stable out a release, but an indirect cost because instability in a product encourages customers to stay back on older releases, which is always more expensive to support. So, ensuring stability in what we produce is mutually beneficial for everyone. So we put great effort into making upgrades, relatively easy with a formalized migration path. Comprehensive documentation details kind of a version by version migration guide from Visual Age 6 all the way up to our latest version and every single version in between. So our support services can help answer questions and clarify edge cases wherever they occur. And then we have custom engineering services that are available to assist when an upgrade, the customer's team doesn't have the bandwidth to maybe do it themselves. Now, customers that have worked with us have always been successful in upgrading from one VAST version to the latest. And we've had customers go from Visual Age 4 to our latest version. And let me remind you that the VAST product has been under continued active development with many changes that have occurred since the product was handed off to us from IBM. I mean, every release cycle brings a bunch of new features, not just minor tweaks and fixes. So as an example, we invested heavily with our 64-bit virtual machine release to ensure non-breaking changes. What was projected to be a 2-year project ended up taking well over 5 years, mostly because we wanted to give customers a path forward for modernization, the speed improvements, the increased memory utilization without breaking their existing code. And to explain what this means practically, we recreated IBM's virtual machine from scratch using a modern technology stack. It's so compatible that you can run an IBM Visual Age 3.0 image from 1994 on our current virtual machines today. And yeah, we made it like this because we wanted to, and we pride ourselves on doing things correctly. But to be honest, the enterprise space wouldn't have accepted anything less. And finally, part of what we do is kind of listen to our customers who are at what they're asking for and review them internally on a constant basis. Our roadmap is kind of a reflection of what our collective customer set has been asking for and where they need to go. And honestly, this could be a big challenge because we have such a diverse set of customers and so many different market verticals and different types of systems. So their collective needs are not always so easily defined, but we really listen to feedback and try to accommodate our customers, or at least a segment of customers, or maybe even a particular customer whenever we can do it. Now, another thing that businesses expect from commercial software providers is fully supported software from a team of dedicated professionals. Now, Instantiations has always prided itself on having exceptional service. And I sort of distilled what that really means into some points here that I'd like to go over with you. And the first is responsiveness to support requests. The level of availability that customers get from us absolutely requires a dedicated full-time staff of engineers. With each support case, we carefully track service times and make sure we are meeting the levels that are expected of us by our customers. And expertise in various versions. The reality of professionally supporting our software means we are supporting many different versions of that software. So in the case of VAST, this means supporting a 2+ million line code base, as well as the evolution of that code base over the last 15 years. We have customers on many different versions of the software, also running on various platforms. The support staff needs to be well-versed in all of this to be able to effectively meet the needs of all of our customers. Now, without question, we provide a premium support experience because the core development staff of the product are the support engineers. So we don't have like a call center or run customers through various levels of elevation before they finally get to someone that can help. This not only saves customers time and patience, but ultimately saves them money. And finally, when support cases come to us, there are many that can be extremely difficult to solve. And this makes sense because we have a lot of smart developers that are the users of our product. And if these smart people can't figure it out, well, that's when it comes to us. Therefore, we tend to get hard problems to solve, but we are exceptional at solving them, and we don't give up. Now, there would be too many sort of examples to recount, but I'm going to give you a class of example that we deal with often. Things like, in order to solve issues, a customer may ship us a VMware image with, their system, and then our engineers may stand up a database to mimic the customer's database. And then our engineers may perform multiple executions of the program over many, many days because the problem that may be occurring only occurs seemingly randomly. And internally, we may build custom virtual machines designed just to debug that particular issue. And I've yet to see a case where our engineers didn't solve the problem. Now, Smalltalk as a foundation. And as we know, the cost. Many businesses demand features and support that cannot be fulfilled unless there's a dedicated staff of engineers to make it happen. Okay, so as we know, engineers are expensive. And as I have found, they tend to like to get paid for full-time work. Now, it's very common for commercial software providers to hear, and us included, if this breaks, who's going to fix it and how fast? Now, we've dealt with many high priority immediate response situations like this, and we ensure that our customers are taken care of. But the other thing to consider is that in many cases, our support is actually much more economical than even a part-time engineer being hired by a company. Because of our more sort of intimate level of support that we provide, our customers are effectively getting an on-demand team augmentation with a team of experts that are well-versed in their types of systems. Okay, now, Smalltalk as a foundation. While some things have changed significantly at instantiations over the years, other things like Smalltalk and our service-focused mentality have remained consistent. So I'll go through a very brief history of some of our milestones. And it's important to note that without solid customer-centric services, we wouldn't have been as successful all these years. For example, in 1988, Instantiations was founded and became a provider of Smalltalk-based software training and consultation services. Okay, what we do may sound pretty familiar here, and that's because it's what we do today. But what this doesn't capture is all the change that has kind of occurred over the years. Different tools were created and sold, and different Smalltalk dialects were used. Instantiations was acquired by or merged with different companies, and eventually Instantiations re-instantiated itself to spin off from Park Place Digitalk in 1997. And truth be told, the only consistent parts of Instantiations during this time was Smalltalk as a foundation and our staff. So for the sake of simplicity, we'll say that the Smalltalk only era lasted until 1999, at which point Instantiation started developing Java tools for the Eclipse IDE, but was still working with Smalltalk. And this resulted from our partnership we developed with IBM, which led them to ask us to be one of the first companies briefed on Eclipse. And out of this development came Instantiation's Code Pro suite of tools for Java, and eventually Window Builder for Java. Now in 2005, Instantiations took over Visual Age Smalltalk from IBM and rebranded the product to VA Smalltalk. So until 2010, we were creating both Smalltalk and Java software. Now in 2010, Google purchased Instantiation's Java division, and VA Smalltalk became the primary product of Instantiations. Google was impressed by our creation of a version of Window Builder for the Google Web Toolkit, and eventually sought to acquire our technology and some of the people who were responsible for it. So Instantiation was once again only selling Smalltalk software and related services, and remained that way until recently. So in 2021, Instantiations puts more emphasis on advancement and expansion. So after the Google deal in 2010, Instantiations was solely focused on effectively maintaining and supporting VA Smalltalk and its add-ons. In 2017, we started to prioritize innovation more, increasing features for VAST and delving into new technologies to keep VAST at the forefront of modern development tooling. So in the past couple of years, you've probably noticed that we continue to create new features for VAST that maybe aren't typical for Smalltalk. For example, A+ spec features and promises. We've even prioritized an increase in meaningful and regular communication around instantiations and VAST too, because it's important that our customers know what's happening with a company and its software they rely on. So interestingly enough, it seems like every 11 years, there's the start of a new chapter in technology innovation and instantiations, and 2021 is no different. But I'll give some more insights about that a little later in the presentation. Throughout the years, we've kept pace with customer needs and changing technology, and that is what being a commercial software provider is all about. Now, even though change has been consistent and we've added and removed technologies that we sell, Smalltalk has always been an important part of instantiations. Now, as I'm sure it's clear at this point, part of being a long-lived commercial software provider is adapting to change and focusing on services to help customers. So while similar technologies have been the foundation of our business for over 30 years, the needs of our customers have evolved significantly. And so while it may not always be obvious, we're always changing to keep pace. So to be clear, when any business talks about advancement and expansion, including instantiations, it's about ensuring the long-term health of that business. It gives businesses the ability to weather economic downturns better and invest in new features that benefit customers. So before we talk about what we're doing, I did want to give you some context. So in short, instantiations will forever have Smalltalk at its foundation. We believe in this technology and the long-term benefit that it provides to our customers. And that said, we'd like to grow faster. I mean, what business that is a business wouldn't, right? And the best way to do that is diversifying the technologies we support and expanding the services around those technologies. And while many of those technologies may work in concert with Smalltalk, others may not. So this is a really similar approach in some ways to us bringing Java development into instantiations in 1999. So what are the new technologies that we're looking at supporting or are already supporting? So new usage of programming languages like Dart and Rust and frameworks on top like Flutter. So for example, our new involvement with Dart and the Flutter community has already yielded 2 Dart packages that have gained quick adoption. But let's not forget the advancements we brought to VAST from Dart, like features and promises in VAST 2021, and asynchronous streams and asynchronous zones coming to VAST 2022 later this year, which extends Smalltalk further with a very mature asynchronous programming framework. So another example is our use of Rust to create an advanced Unicode framework for VAST that will have support rivaling other programming languages like Swift, Perl 6, now Raku, and Elixir, which have best-in-class Unicode support. So on the whole, these technologies are improving VAST, and we're giving back to their communities where we can, but at the same time, the inclusion of this technology opens up new options for VAST. I mean, one of our goals is to incorporate some modern web technologies in VAST that would be built on top of our new asynchronous-based framework. And what's important to note here is that these technologies are in many cases already aligning with our current customer needs and are providing some great solutions. But of course, this tech can be outside our traditional Smalltalk space as well, where there's a huge potential for growth. So now, with these new technologies we're investing in, plus our existing expertise, we're well into our expansion as a services company. You may have noticed a greater focus on our services within our new website. As early as 2019, I've spoken to audiences at ESUG and FAST conferences about how we see ourselves as a service-oriented company. But now we've been expanding beyond just supporting the VAST platform. We've proven our quality of service and support of VAST. And now our customers are taking advantage of our expertise for custom development, for training and consulting. So I do want to make one point just to be extra clear, though. You know, there's many folks that look at instantiations and think that we're only small talkers. And the reality is that to build a small talk platform as advanced as VAST, you need more than just small talkers. So we have a team with experience in low-level languages like assembly, moving on up the stack to C, C++, and Rust, Java, and Dart and Flutter. And yes, multiple small talk dialects. Now, and quite frequently, many of these skills are needed to support our vast enterprise customers because small talk systems frequently communicate with dozens of other systems and technology stacks within the enterprise. So part of us supporting them effectively requires our knowledge of these other technologies. So in short, anyone has access to the combined knowledge of instantiations. Now, this isn't the first round of advancement and expansion at instantiations. It's just the latest. And we're really excited about what it means for the future. So with that, I'll say, thank you again for attending. And I hope you enjoy the next two talks we have lined up. If you have some questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them. I think we've got 10 minutes or so for questions.
So Seth, there's no questions in the chat, but if anyone wants to ask them out loud, you can.
Yes, well, there are too many things here, but it was very clear and illuminating. A very simple question. Do you sometimes say no to requests that your customers send to you?
Yes, and we don't like to do that, of course, and we try to find other ways around it. But the bottom line is, if we're a commercial company, and the decisions that we make and the development and resources that we push into something has to have a return that is at least equal to, but hopefully exceeds that of which we are doing. And if a case can't made to do that, then we have to give them another option to say, look, this is going to put all of you at risk if we make this decision, because we're going to take a hit on this. And if we take a hit, our customers take a hit. That's just more risk. And that's why we offer custom development and give other options to say, look, if this is what you want, we can do it, but we're going to have to work this in a separate place because we can't get a return on this in our market that would justify the cost that would go into developing this. And that's kind of the main one that I see. Again, in a perfect world, I would give everything to everybody. But that's not the reality of the market that we're in. And, and it's not unique to us. That's true for any business. You have to have a return that equals or exceeds that which you're going to put into it, unless you're making some sort of investment for some future return that's going to be hopefully greater. But there's lots of technologies that, we would have a hard case for saying, yeah, okay, we're going to spend a bunch of resource and cost to the company to do this, and it's going to put it at great risk because we're going to take a loss. And if that happens, our customers are at risk. And I don't think any of our customers ultimately want that if they think that through. So that's why we offer our custom development. And that's how that started getting kicked off, is because we wanted to offer a path and say, look, yeah, we can do it. And if you help us and it gets to the point where, the rate of return is acceptable to us, yeah, we'll absolutely do it. No problems at all. I mean, that's why we're in business. We're here to help you. So yeah, I hope, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
So here in the chat, Bob asked if you have plans for mobile device support.
So, well, we are looking at, so as most folks who know maybe Flutter. Flutter, the landscape with Dart and Flutter is a lot like, Ruby and Ruby on Rails. Ruby Rails drove Ruby, and that's a lot what we have in the Flutter and Dart space at the moment. And Flutter has good support for targeting multiple platforms, single code base, and actually living that out in a way that actually works. And so we are looking at that in concert with Smalltalk. I'm not ready to talk about a whole lot of detail on that, but that is something, again, that we're changing to meet our customers' demands, and we see web and we see mobile and we see those solutions, and we're always looking for, how to carry the VAST platform in particular to the next level. And that means it may work in concert with some other things. So yeah, that's a future thing we're looking at, but that's the most detail I can give you at the moment.
Okay, so about that question, and someone rephrased it, why Dart or Flutter specifically?
Well, so the first thing that got maybe me in particular, but us interested in Dart was their asynchronous support. Now, Dart has to transpile to JavaScript and does so really well. It's got a couple of transpilers, but the big one is it produces really optimized JavaScript, but it also has to be kind of semantically roughly equivalent or whatever. So, there's a lot of features that are in the JavaScript, in Dart, in Node.js, which basically JavaScript syntax and engine, async await, all that kind of stuff. So, we really liked what we saw with the asynchronous programming, and we thought that it would work really well with Smalltalk, because Smalltalk has the ability to do async tests. I'm gonna let Mariano, he's gonna show you this, so I'm not gonna go too much in depth, but I'll say that's the key thing that started it off. And then we felt like we had taken so much. We ported their whole async framework. It's now in our product. And we felt like after that, we needed to do something in return. So we pushed out our framework for unified compression framework. So that's Z standard, LZ4, gzip, and Brotli. And we put it up in pub.dev. And for a Dart project, it's extremely popular at this point. Like I said, the Flutter drives the ecosystem. So you could make a stick of gum widget and go throw it up in Flutter, and it'll probably reach, 1 million users. But Dart is harder because there's less people there. But we really put in some quality stuff in Dart and stuck it in pub.dev, and it's really taken off. It's quite popular out there. And we felt good knowing that, okay, we took a ton of tech and we pushed something back that was actually meaningful. And that's kind of how we like to operate as a company.
Okay, so I have another question here. Julian asked, what's your position as a company regarding open source project? And if so, are there any active projects right now?
So we have a GitHub presence. So we have a vast community hub. We'd like to build that up more, and that's fairly newer. There is the VAST goodies that has been maintained by a customer of ours for a very long time. But we're also trying to build up, some of we're also sharing code that we're not necessarily going to put into the product, but we want to have as, open source alternatives. Historically for open source, we're a commercial company. So it's, we're not a community of folks that come together and give our personal time to create code. And therefore, I pay folks to produce code, and it's not always on the top of my mind, how do I give this away? But that being said, we think open source communities are really important, and that's why we tend to, try to be platinum sponsors for the various conferences that are mostly, we understand, open source individuals. We are trying to release some packages for folks with really the hope of that it doesn't have to be instantiation staff that's always the one, you know, that's writing the code, that we can foster more of a community around it. I have no problem with open source. I mean, like I said, it's holistically different from what it is that we do, but we support it. And I think that's important to do. That's where, from an educational standpoint, I know a lot of people, you know, get started there. And I think that, I think it's important to have an open source presence.
Okay. Another question is if you are interested in improve the BAST and Git integration.
Yeah, I mean, we're spending a lot of company resource to make that happen. That's what the and Mariano will show this, but that is the Git tonal integration that we have, and it's up in GitHub. And again, I'll let Mariano show that off, but we've spent at least a couple of years making sure to solve the issues going on with you know, envy and vast applications and sub applications and all these pieces, and how that relates now to you know, storage on a file system and Git. And yeah, we spent a lot of time in doing that. In fact, we released it in our latest product. There's an official feature that's supported now for Git and tonal integration.
Okay, and for the last question, Gabriel is asking if you are envisioning some way for people writing open source software that can run on the BA platform to take advantage of already available tooling like GitHub Actions to run a continuous build using BA.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things there. First of all, with regards to the open source, we and I probably should amend what I said before. We kind of pulled our current program, and we're going to be putting another open source program in place later this summer. So that will give access to folks to actually get VAST and work with it from an open source standpoint. And with regards to the second part, part of what we're doing for the release for VAST 2022 involves scriptable tooling to integrate CI. Now, so that could be useful. Now, I don't want to talk too much because I'm not as well educated on all. I think guys like Mariano and some others could do it justice better. I'm not as good on the details, but I know that support is there. I mean, because we planned it, and it's important. So yeah, that'll be coming.
Okay, so that was the last question. So if no one wants to ask something else, we can move up to the next talk.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.